How I Made My First $1,000,000. I never thought I would speak these words out loud, not even to myself in the quiet hours before sleep. But here I am, recording it, because the truth has been echoing too long in my mind to remain trapped in shadows. I made my first $1,000,000, yes, but the cost was far greater than anyone could imagine. And perhaps the first thing you should know is that the money didn't make me free. It made me fragile, hollow, obsessed with the next move, the next risk, the next illusion of control. It started in my early 20s, fresh out of college, full of ideas, full of ego, and naive enough to believe that vision alone could build empires. I was in the heart of Silicon Valley, surrounded by stories of overnight successes, app launches that changed lives, venture capitalists who seemed like gods dispensing favor. I had little more than a laptop, a credit card, and a relentless hunger to prove myself. I knew no one would wait for me to grow slowly. This world required speed, cunning, and sacrifices I was ready to make, though I had no idea how deep the rabbit hole would go. The first idea came late one night, during an all-nighter coding session. My apartment smelled of stale coffee and anxiety. Every ping on my phone felt like either opportunity or threat. And then it hit me. A platform that would bridge gaps in a market that everyone assumed was saturated. A simple concept, but executed correctly, it could scale exponentially. I told myself I was solving a problem, but deep down, I knew part of me was just chasing the thrill of disruption, the intoxicating rush of creating something that could make people notice me. The early days were brutal. Days bled into nights without distinction. I lived on granola bars and espresso, eyes bloodshot, hands trembling from caffeine and anticipation. I barely spoke to anyone outside of my project. Friends called. I ignored them. Family checked in. I didn't answer. Every moment not spent working felt like a betrayal of my ambition. Sleep became a memory. Social life a luxury I no longer allowed myself. In hindsight, this was the beginning of the moral erosion that would follow me through every milestone. My first breakthrough was small, but it felt monumental. A beta launch with just 100 users revealed a pattern, a taste of validation that was more addictive than any substance. Numbers climbed slowly, then surged unpredictably. I started tweaking algorithms, adjusting interfaces, responding to every comment, obsessing over engagement metrics as if my heart depended on them. And perhaps it did. In that digital realm, every click was a heartbeat, every download a pulse confirming my relevance. Investors came next. I pitched tirelessly, presenting a persona of confidence I did not always feel. Behind the polished slides and rehearsed phrases, I was terrified, afraid they would see the cracks, the uncertainty, the moments of panic when I doubted every decision. But the money came, first in small increments, then larger rounds. The thrill of capital injection was intoxicating. For a while, I believed I was invincible, that wealth equated to safety, that I could bend the world to my vision. But reality has a way of stripping illusions quickly. I learned that the $1,000,000 mark is not a point of arrival. It is a pivot into deeper, darker complexities. Expectations multiplied. Every success invited scrutiny. Every decision carried weight, not only financially but emotionally and ethically. I started compromising in ways I would have once dismissed, cutting corners, overpromising, stretching truth, leveraging every advantage I could find, even if it unsettled me. And with each compromise, a small piece of my integrity eroded. I justified it as necessity, as the only way to survive and scale, but the internal cost was real. Relationships began to fracture. Friends I had kept at arm's length were now impossible to reach. The ones I tried to confide in recoiled, wary of the obsessive energy I radiated. My romantic life suffered. Connections faltered under the weight of my ambition and obsession. I was present physically but absent emotionally, and it showed. Calls went unanswered, invitations declined, birthdays forgotten. Every missed moment was a subtle but cumulative proof that my humanity was becoming collateral damage. There were nights when I stared at the ceiling of my small apartment, surrounded by screens glowing with charts and notifications, and felt an abyss opening inside me. I had what I thought I wanted, proof of success, wealth beyond my parents' imagination. But I also had a gnawing emptiness that no amount of money could fill. I realized then that my pursuit was not for freedom or creation. It was to outrun a sense of inadequacy I had carried for years. One particularly dark evening, I faced a turning point. A major client threatened to pull out due to mismanaged expectations, something I could have prevented had I acted ethically and transparently. The realization hit me like a physical blow. My obsession with speed, my desire to impress, my relentless drive for growth had endangered everything I had built. I had created a machine that was efficient and profitable but morally unstable, and I was at the helm, unsure if I could steer it back. From that night on, I became acutely aware of the duality of my journey. Every dollar earned was tainted with the decisions I had rationalized. Every compliment from investors or mentors was shadowed by the ethical compromises I had ignored. I began journaling obsessively, recording every choice, every rationalization, every pang of guilt. These recordings were my mirror, a relentless reflection I could not escape. They were painful, but they were honest. Months passed. The platform scaled beyond my initial expectations. Revenue crossed 7 figures. Milestones were celebrated publicly. Press releases hailed my ingenuity. But privately, I wrestled with the knowledge that each step forward had a cost. I had achieved the $1 million mark, but the celebration felt hollow. Success had arrived, but so had exhaustion, alienation, and a deep sense of fragility. I had become efficient, powerful, and isolated. The irony was unbearable. I won't claim redemption yet. Part of this journey is acknowledging that the lessons are ongoing. The $1 million milestone did not make me wise. It made me aware. Aware of my impulses, my fears, my moral blind spots. Aware that ambition without reflection can create monsters of ourselves. I learned that financial achievement is measurable, but personal integrity, trust, and mental stability are fragile currencies that cannot be bought. As I continue to grow, I carry the weight of those choices. I am more calculated now, more introspective, but I am also wary of the intoxicating pull of unchecked ambition. I realize that the first $1 million is never just about money. It's a mirror, reflecting who we are when no one is watching, when every decision counts, and when every compromise, however small, accumulates into the architecture of our character. I want to leave this confession here, in this recording, for anyone who might listen. Wealth is seductive, thrilling, and transformative, but it is also a test of morality, endurance, and humanity. If you chase it, do so with eyes wide open. Every milestone carries shadows, and the first million is often where they grow the longest. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to Tale Hub for more journeys into ambition, growth, and the hidden costs of success. Your support means the world. Picking up where I left off, the second half of my journey toward the first $1 million is less about the thrill of creation and more about facing the consequences of obsession. After that initial surge of success, I found myself trapped in a cycle of overwork, ethical compromise, and self-imposed isolation. The very platform that brought me wealth became a lens through which I saw my own fragility. A reminder that the pursuit of ambition without reflection is a dangerous game. In the months following the 7-figure milestone, my life became a sequence of calculated moves and unrelenting pressure. I had investors, users, and market expectations pulling me in every direction. Sleep became a concept rather than a practice. Meals were secondary to coding, strategy, or obsessively analyzing metrics. Relationships that had existed before were now strained beyond repair. Friends drifted away, disinterested in my obsession, while family interactions became polite check-ins rather than genuine connection. Every day reinforced the truth I had been avoiding. Success had become synonymous with loneliness. There were moments of intense self-awareness, brief flickers when I could see the person I had become. In those quiet hours staring at screens that glowed into the night, I questioned my choices. Was the $1 million worth the cost? Could I have achieved success without compromising integrity, without alienating those I cared about? I realized that I had been chasing validation, not fulfillment, and the applause of the outside world was a hollow echo in an empty room. Investments and expansion plans brought new challenges. I had to make decisions that directly affected the livelihoods of others' employees, contractors, partners. Each choice weighed heavily, and the knowledge that a wrong move could ruin someone's life was paralyzing. The very ambition that had driven me now threatened to crush my empathy. I saw corners being cut, deadlines being manipulated, and moral lines being blurred, all justified in the name of growth. The irony was cruel. To earn wealth, I had to sacrifice parts of myself I had once valued most. The turning point came unexpectedly. A critical system failure occurred in the platform, exposing weaknesses in my oversight. I watched as clients were inconvenienced, trust was shaken, and the media sniffed for sensational headlines. Panic coursed through me, but so did a strange clarity. I understood that I had reached the limits of what one person could ethically control in pursuit of financial gain. The platform was thriving, but I was unraveling. I took a rare day off, sat alone in a cafe, and reflected on the trajectory I had chosen. The $1 million sat in my accounts, but the human cost was staggering. I realized that ambition unchecked by conscience was a dangerous substance, intoxicating in the short term, but corrosive in the long term. The lesson was unavoidable. Wealth alone is never the measure of success. Character, integrity, and emotional balance are currencies far more valuable. Slowly, I began to adjust. I delegated more responsibly. reinstated boundaries, and made a conscious effort to repair fractured relationships where possible. It wasn't about redemption in the traditional sense. It was about acknowledgement. Acknowledging that mistakes had been made, that I had been blinded by desire and ego, and that my first $1 million was both a triumph and a warning. Over time, I began to appreciate the subtle victories. A message from a former colleague expressing gratitude, a minor course correction that prevented harm, moments of introspection that reminded me of my humanity. The wealth remained, but its meaning shifted. No longer a symbol of personal invincibility, it became a tool, a reminder of what I had endured, what I had lost, and what I could still do responsibly. Now, reflecting on the entire journey, I see the duality of ambition. Money is powerful, yes, but so is the toll it exacts when pursued without care. The first million is rarely just a financial milestone. It is a mirror reflecting the choices we make, the compromises we tolerate, and the shadows we must confront. For me, that mirror revealed a young man driven, restless, and flawed, but also capable of awareness, growth, and measured recalibration. I carry the lessons with me every day. The nights of obsessive coding, the ethical compromises, the missed birthdays, the frayed friendships, they are all part of the architecture of my character. They remind me that achievement is meaningful only when weighed against integrity and humanity. The $1 million itself is a number. The real story lies in the choices, the consequences, and the understanding that no external measure of success can replace internal accountability. This audio diary, this confession, is my attempt to articulate what so many entrepreneurs, hustlers, and dreamers face but seldom admit. The journey to wealth is rarely linear or clean. It is fraught with moral dilemmas, personal sacrifices, and the constant tension between desire and conscience. Recognizing this reality is the first step toward using success responsibly, rather than being consumed by it. To anyone listening, I hope this story serves as both a caution and an insight. Ambition is necessary, drive is admirable, but without reflection, every victory can carry hidden costs. Consider your choices carefully, remain aware of your moral compass, and never underestimate the impact of your decisions on both yourself and those around you. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to TaleHub for more reflections on ambition, success, and the hidden costs behind the milestones we chase. Your support means everything.